Media influences on aggression. When we use the word media, it's a pretty broad term. It can include the internet, TV, and computer games. But it also can include old methods of mass communication like the radio, books, newspaper publishing, and even art. The concern about aggression and the media is if seeing depictions of aggression in visual media can lead the viewer to become more aggressive in their day-to-day life. Social learning theory in this unit. And many of the ideas that we covered there transfer over to the media. There are models, not live but symbolic, on our TV screens, displaying a range of behaviours. Now, we're very likely to identify with these models. We could also say people's moral decision-making processes can be altered by the constant exposure to media aggression. Constant exposure to the idea that extreme violence can be justified is thought to change the way an individual thinks about their own responses when they feel wronged. Media influences on aggression. But in the computer game, you have agency. You decide what to do. Often this is by controlling an avatar. Many games are set up in a way that aggressive behaviour is actually the only way to play and progress. Not only that, but high scores and access to loot reward more extreme and effective aggressive behaviour. This isn't just vicarious reinforcement, this is direct reinforcement, so operant conditioning. But there is a counter idea about the effects of video games on aggression. Perhaps it reduces real-life aggressive behaviour by providing a safe place to release aggressive emotion without anyone getting hurt. That process is a Freudian term called catharsis. Desensitization, disinhibition, and cognitive priming. Now, to be desensitized is to lose the extreme emotional response we feel when presented with a stimulus. So if we're shown the results of extreme aggression, such as pictures of people killed in warfare, if we're not desensitized, we would feel a sense of disgust and anxiety. So it's suggested we won't be aggressive in order to avoid feeling those unpleasant emotions. But if we are exposed constantly to horrific images, then that sense of disgust reduces. We are desensitized, and theoretically more able to commit violence ourselves. Disinhibition is about socialization. We're shown from a very young age that our aggressive acts are disapproved of. Usually we're punished in some way whenever we display aggression. Over time we become inhibited. We understand that aggression is not the way to resolve conflict. But aggression in the media is often shown to be acceptable, and this is thought to counteract feelings of inhibition. And finally, cognitive priming. This is based on the cognitive idea of schemas, mental scripts that are automatic ways to behave in certain situations. It's also suggested we can learn aggressive scripts from watching movies. Perhaps the hero, when threatened with a knife, fights back in a particular way. Being threatened with a knife then becomes what's known as a priming stimuli. And then perhaps a few months later, the person who watched the movie is mugged in the street by an attacker with a knife. This theory suggests that a similar context triggers the script, and the victim will try to act out the hero's aggressive response. Media influences on aggression. Research evaluation. So firstly, we discussed Williams' Canadian study in social learning theory, and we can use it again here. Her observation of playground aggression before and after the introduction of television in an isolated town did show a clear increase in both verbal and physical aggression after the introduction of TV. A study we can use if we want to talk about computer games and desensitization is by Kannagi and Anderson. In this experimental setup, participants would play either a violent or non-violent computer game for 20 minutes, and then watch a 10-minute video clip of real-world violence like recordings of police shootouts. The researchers found by measuring galvanic skin response and heart rate that people who had played violent computer games had lower readings, indicating a reduction in their stress response. So in other words, they were desensitized to violence. A study that we can use when talking about disinhibition is by Berkowitz and Powers. This study got male participants to watch an aggressive clip from a TV show. They were also given a written summary of the show. The participants whose written summary suggested the violence they had seen was justified were more likely to go on to be aggressive to a Confederate in a follow-up task. It suggested that being exposed to justification of aggression led to disinhibition of their own aggressive response. A study by Murray supports cognitive priming. Children were placed in an fMRI machine and shown violent and non-violent videos. Now, a bunch of brain regions activated to both videos, but interestingly, some only activated to the violent videos. As the amygdala activated in response to the violent videos, Murray argued this is evidence of a real emotional response to the violence. And one area of the posterior cingulate is associated with long-term memory storage, with Murray suggesting this is evidence of the observer storing scripts.